What's up, bro?
Oh, good.
How are we? Good?
What is that?
That's not mine. Not mine. Shit. Not mine. What's up, guys? Joseph Rakic here, and today in this video we are going to go over the best chest exercises, in my opinion, for muscle growth and full development. Exercise number one coming up is dumbbell press. And I'm going to tell you exactly why that is the number one exercise that you should be doing. So, I love the dumbbell press, and the reason that I love the dumbbell press is because you can really isolate the pectoral muscles. When you're doing a bench press, your form is somewhat locked in. It's just going up and down, up and down. Also, you can't get as much of a range of motion because the bar stops in your chest. With a dumbbell, you can come a little bit deeper, get a better range of motion. At the lowest phase of the range of motion, from here to here, is where there is the most chest activation and the most muscle fibers ripped. So, dumbbell is superior from that point of view. Also, with bench press, as I mentioned, it's up and down. Dumbbells, you go down, up, but also together. So you get a better contraction. So it's not just up like that. There is a slight inwards contraction, which allows you to tense, squeeze, and contract the pectoral muscle more. More activation, more squeeze, more contraction will help stimulate the muscle further than if you just were doing this. That is why I think dumbbell press is the number one exercise to do. The only hard thing about this gym is finding dumbbells that match. I also like to start my chest workouts out with something where I can overload the muscle with a little bit of weight. Towards the end of the workout, you go into other exercises like your flies, like your push-ups, which I'll talk about in depth later on, as that's one of my favorite exercises as well. But to start off, when there's the most energy and you've got the most strength and power, you want to overload that muscle with weight, because weight overload is a form of progressive overload. Progressive overload is what gets the muscle to grow. And so when I am training, I do anywhere from probably 3 to 5 sets per exercise. 3 if I'm not really feeling it, 5 if I am really feeling it. Sometimes I do a little bit more, like 6. And usually I'll work my way up. So I go heavier and heavier and heavier with the weight. Then sometimes I pyramid down. So like the last set or the last 2 sets, I'll drop the weight and focus on more reps. I'm not too strict with the rep counting. Just for my own head, I have to always kind of finish on like an even number. Like I can't finish on 13. I can do 12, but yeah, I think the rep range doesn't matter too much. What matters is, are you pushing your body to its limits? Like, are you failing on 6 or are you failing on 26? Both of them can be equally as hard, as long as you're just pushing your body and putting your body under as much stress. If you fail on 6, you're getting that progressive overload from the heavy weight, and you're getting the stress and the stimulus from the heavy weight. If you fail on 26, obviously the weight is a lot lighter, and you're getting that stress not from the weight really, but you're getting it from time under tension, the repetitions, and just that longer period of stress. So there are pros and cons to both. All right, second exercise. All right, so what I think the second best exercise is that you can do is really anything for the upper chest. So any type of incline movement is going to obviously help develop your upper chest. I like an incline movement where it's obviously an incline, but not too steep of an incline. Because when it's too steep, your shoulders will take over and you're putting that stress on your delts instead of your upper chest. So I like an incline that is somewhat low, and this is probably the steepest that I would go for an incline movement. I usually like to do this first or second, because the hardest area of the chest to build is your upper chest. So if that's the hardest area of your chest to build, it's going to make the most sense to prioritize a lot of your training around building the upper chest, because that'll give you a complete, full looking chest. So yeah, second exercise for me is incline work. Today, we're using the incline machine press.
I was at the seminar last month,
Yep.
and someone was talking about the chest. There's no such thing as upper chest and lower chest and middle chest. It's just like one chest. Even
Yep.
though you can still work like on the incline or the decline, and also like the normal
Yep.
press, but there's no such thing as like upper and lower
Middle and lower.
middle. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yep, so somewhat correct. There is an upper pectoral muscle and there is a lower pectoral muscle, but there is no middle pectoral muscle. So I don't know if you would call it two different pectoral muscles or two different muscle heads. Now, I guess what this person is saying is no matter what exercise that you do, the entire pectoral contracts as one, which is true, which is correct. You cannot isolate the upper or the lower chest. However, what you can do is you can place more stress and more emphasis on the upper or the lower. For example, if you are doing an incline press, you can emphasize the stress and the tension on the upper head. But the lower pectoral is still contracting. So it contracts as one muscle, but there is multiple heads, just like the bicep. There's the bicep long head, the outer, and the bicep short head, the inner. But you can't isolate it. You can just do exercises that emphasize it more or less. So an incline press will emphasize the upper chest more, a decline press will emphasize the lower pec more. But for anyone that talks about a middle pec, there is no such thing. There is only one pec muscle, or two if you count both titties, but there's one pec muscle that has two heads, the upper and the lower. My upper chest is pumped from that. Now, there are a few other techniques that I like to use as well that you can also include into your chest training, which will help you maximize the stress on the muscle that you want to work. For example, when I'm doing my incline press, or any press for that example, I use partial range of motion. I don't use a full range of motion. So I'm like this, instead of like this. Maybe every now and again, that occasional rep I'll lock out, but for the most part, I do not lock out. Reason being, as soon as you lock out, the stress is removed and the stress is here. I want the stress on my chest. So if I keep a partial range of motion, that stress is on my chest the whole entire time. Therefore, more muscle activation, therefore, more muscle fibers ripped, therefore, more growth. Same with the grip positions. If you want to come over here and look at the handles, Michael. Two different positions. Both good, but depending on where you grip will change the muscle activation happening. I think if your elbows are too flared, what's going to happen? Your shoulders are going to take over, and your shoulders are going to be the ones under the stress and tension. I want my chest to be under stress and tension. So ideally, I want to have my elbows drop down a little bit. That way there's less shoulder and there's going to be more stress on the chest. So normally I would use this handle here. However, on this machine, me using this back handle, I find my elbows are still somewhat tucked. So I'm actually using that handle here today. But yeah, just little changes like that, guys, can make a big difference to your training if you want the best gains. And then, so what I'll occasionally do for like the last set, guys, I'll strip the weight off, and then I'll just go for a little bit more reps.
Are you a believer of cardio, or less cardio, more food, or more food, less cardio? What's your thought on that?
Both. So I think, first off, we need to understand, do you need to do cardio to lose fat? The answer to that is no. To lose fat, you need to create a calorie deficit, which means consuming less calories than what you burn on a daily basis. You do not need cardio at all to achieve that. All you need to do is burn more calories than what you consume. Now, in saying that, cardio is a great tool to burn calories. So if that helps you burn more calories, that puts you in a greater calorie deficit. Therefore, it's going to help with your fat loss. But is it needed? No. Is it helpful and beneficial? Yes. But what you need to understand is you need to look at your overall day. Are you working a hard, intensive labor job, building fences, digging holes all day? If so, you probably wouldn't want to be doing cardio on top of that, because you need your energy for the gym. But now, if you have a sedentary job, you're sitting at an office all day, sitting at the desk all day, a great way to burn some calories would be to do some cardio, separate from your weight training. The only thing you need to take into consideration is you must not let the cardio take away effort and intensity from your workouts. So if you're doing an hour of cardio in the morning and that's ruining your workouts and making your workouts less effective, it'll be detrimental to your results and your progress, because you're essentially just burning less calories through your workouts now. So I think one should add and include cardio only if they need to. For example, if I start dieting, I wouldn't do any cardio. All I would do is reduce my calories, and I would continue training as hard as I can. When weight loss stalls, I would decrease my calories. When weight loss stalls again, I then have the choice or opportunity to either decrease calories or add in cardio. If I'm not hungry, I might want to reduce my calories. If I'm already hungry and I'm finding I feel like I'm not consuming much calories and I'm suffering because of that and my workouts are getting hard, I wouldn't want to reduce my calories anymore. So it'll make more logical sense for me to increase my cardio for extra calorie burn. And then I guess it just comes down to playing with it. Reduce calories or increase cardio. For the best outcome, however, I think you would be better off keeping calories on the higher side and adding in more cardio to put yourself in that deficit. That's my opinion.
Which part of the chest, like the fly, is known for?
So a fly will pretty much hit the entire chest. If the seat is low, it'll hit more of the upper chest. If the seat is high and your hands are below your pecs, it'll hit more of the lower pecs. But again, regardless, it'll hit the entire pectoral muscle as one, because the muscle contracts as one. But I like a fly because it's a different movement for the chest. Majority of chest movements are pushing, you know? So if you can do an exercise where you're pulling and activating the chest, such as a fly, it's going to help create a different stimulus, which will help result in new growths. Third exercise is a fly. Any type of fly is good in my opinion. I personally like a machine fly. Reason being, because when you're doing a dumbbell fly and you're connecting the dumbbells together, there's essentially no gravity pulling against you because the dumbbell's resting on your arm, right? So if I do a dumbbell fly, I like to use a partial range of motion so that gravity is always pulling against me. With a machine, I can go right the way and get a full squeeze and contraction. Because of the machine, it's pulling against me. So my chest has to stay contracted to keep that there. That is why I prefer a machine over a dumbbell fly. But again, that's not to say that I don't do dumbbell flies, because I do believe they have their place as well. But I like a fly because, as I mentioned to you before, Michael, a lot of chest exercises, they're all pushing. So if you can hit the chest from a different angle, a pulling movement, such as a fly, you're just going to help create a different stimulus for that muscle, which could result in more muscle growth. Ooh, chest is feeling pumped. Now we're on to one of my favorite exercises that most of you probably won't agree with, but I'll tell you, this is one of the most underrated exercises of all time, in my opinion. I'm going to head over there. Now, what I believe is the most underrated exercises of all time, push-ups. I think push-ups are a great chest exercise. They're a great exercise to really just push and pump that muscle full of blood, and the more blood flow into the muscle, therefore the better nutrient uptake post-workout you're also going to receive, which could maybe, possibly, potentially lead to more gains. So, push-ups are an exercise that I always like to include in the majority of my chest workouts, either it being at the end or either it being a superset to most other exercises. For example, I could do flies, superset with push-ups. I could do pullovers, superset with push-ups. It just helps get more activation and apply more stress to that muscle. Right now though, I am doing it at the end of my workout when I'm fatigued, there's no strength left in my chest, so I'm just going to pump it out with some push-ups and just drive all that blood into the muscle. Alright, so that was the chest workout done, and those are, in my opinion, the best chest exercises that you want to do. We'll just recap on that. So first exercise was a dumbbell press. Reason being is because you can get a bigger stretch compared to a barbell, and also because it's not just a forward push, it's a forward push plus inwards contraction, and that inwards contraction is just going to help for a better contraction of the muscle, as well as more stimulus for that muscle, resulting in more growth. After a dumbbell press, I went on to our second exercise, which in this case is any exercise that is targeting the upper chest. So any form of incline work. I chose the incline machine press. Now, some takeaway points for this incline press that I want to mention that I think is super important. When you're doing an incline press, you don't want the incline to be too steep, because if it is too steep, your shoulders will take over that exercise, resulting in deactivating the chest, and the shoulders are getting that muscle activation and muscle stimulation. So you want to do an incline, but you want to keep it as low as possible. Another takeaway is when you are doing your press, you want to make sure that you have a grip where your elbows are not too flared. If your elbows are very flared, the shoulders are going to roll over. We want to eliminate the shoulders as much as possible, and we want to place all of that stress on the chest. So the best way to do that is to tuck your shoulders, drop your elbows somewhat so that your shoulders are tucked. But tucking your elbows too much will result in your triceps taking over. So essentially what you need to do is you need to find that sweet spot between your shoulders taking over and your triceps taking over. I like to drop my elbows just slightly below my shoulder height. Doing that will give you the best possible outcome when doing an incline press. Third exercise was machine flies. Now, I like machine flies because even when doing a full range of motion, there's still tension pulling against the chest. And you have to keep the chest contracted in order to keep that weight there. Therefore, it is far superior to doing a dumbbell press when there is not that constant tension on the chest. Fourth and final exercise, which is probably the most underrated exercise, push-ups. Push-ups are a great exercise to just pump the muscle full of blood, and it's a great finisher, and it's also a great exercise to superset a lot of your other exercises with. It is one of the most effective exercises that I think is one of the most overrated exercises as well. Great finisher, and if you're not doing push-ups in your chest routine, I highly suggest that you add them in as a finisher or add them in as a superset. Anyway, guys, that is the workout. Don't forget, if you do need help with a meal plan or workout program, check the link in the description. And like always, we'll see you in the next video.